A guy in a lab coat picks up a nail. Not a needle, not a pin. A nail. 6 centimeters of cold steel. And he lines it up right in the middle of a fully charged electric car battery. Now, you and I both know what's supposed to happen next. We've all seen the videos. A Tesla taps a guardrail and burns for 6 hours, while 4 fire trucks pump water into a pit. That's what a punctured lithium battery does. It doesn't smoke, it doesn't fizzle, it detonates. Thermal runaway, the polite engineering word for your car becomes a bomb. So he drives the nail straight through, in one side, out the other. Nothing. No flame, no smoke, no bang. The cell just sits there with a hole punched clean through it, and it does nothing. The voltage barely flickers. It keeps working with a nail in it. That's not supposed to be possible. That breaks the one rule every battery on Earth has followed for 30 years. You puncture it, it burns. Every laptop, every phone, every EV, puncture equals fire. That's not opinion, that's chemistry, that's physics. And a company in China just looked at that physics and broke it. The company is Greater Bay Technology, backed by GAC Group, one of the biggest car makers in China you've never heard of. Hold that name. But here's the part that's going to get under your skin. This isn't a video about a battery. This is about how the country that built the car, the country of the small block V8, of Detroit, the country that put the whole world on wheels, got lapped, quietly, while we argued about cup holders. I'm going to prove every word of that. The nail, the fire that didn't happen, the 900-mile car, and the 12 years America spent promising us this exact technology and never delivering it. 12 years. Remember that number. We're coming back to it. Hard. Let's go. I've got a pretty good idea who you are. You've owned cars with carburetors. You can tell a 350 from a 351 with the hood closed. You remember when import was a dirty word, and you remember the 70s, when Detroit said the Japanese Econoboxes would never last, and then spent 30 years getting its teeth kicked in by Toyota and Honda. Whole towns, maybe your town. So this isn't the first time a country snuck up on us, but this time it's not Econoboxes. This time it's the core technology the whole next century of cars runs on, the battery. And here's the thing, I'm not selling you an EV. Love your V8 till they pry the keys out of your hands. I'm right there with you. But the country that owns the battery owns the car. Electric, hybrid, whatever comes next. Whoever controls the energy storage controls the jobs, the supply chain, who builds cars, and who just bolts somebody else's parts together. And right now, that country is not us. Let's go back to the nail, because I want you to actually understand why it matters. A normal lithium-ion battery has a positive side, a negative side, and between them, a liquid, a flammable solvent, basically a cousin of lighter fluid. That liquid has always been the problem. Puncture the cell, you get a short. The temperature spikes. The liquid heats up, and it feeds itself. Heat makes reaction. Reaction makes heat. That's thermal runaway. That's the 6-hour fire. That's why a wrecked EV gets parked 100 feet from everything and watched for 3 days. Because it can reignite, light itself back up, hours later in the junkyard. Here's what Greater Bay Technology did. They took the liquid out. They built an all-solid-state battery. The stuff the ions travel through is now a solid that does not burn. No lighter fluid in the can, nothing to feed a fire. Drive a nail through it, and there's nothing to ignite. Now let me be the honest guy here. Solid state isn't a new dream. It's the holy grail. Everybody's been chasing it for years. Toyota, the Germans, the Americans. The question was never, is it good? It was always, can anybody actually build it at scale in a car you can buy? And that's the line Greater Bay just stepped over. In April 2026, they announced their first all-solid-state cells came off an actual production line, not a beaker, a line. Their parent GAC had already finished its first solid-state line in late 2025. over 400 watt-hours per kilogram, range over 1,000 kilometers, 600 plus miles on one charge. In a battery you can stab. That nail from the start? Not a stunt. It's the standardized safety test. The gold standard, does this become a bomb test? Lithium-ion fails it. Always has. That's the test that proves the liquid is gone. Quick question, honest one. 10 years ago, if I had told you the country that solves the battery fire problem first wouldn't be Japan or Germany or us, but China, you'd have laughed at me. So would I. Hold that feeling. Because the safety is just the appetizer. The numbers are where it gets insane. Now the number it stands next to, the battery in a normal mass market EV today is about 150 to 180. 180 versus 824. That's not a little better. That's roughly 5 times the energy in the same weight. Full honesty, that 824 is a lab result from a Chinese company called WeLion. Their chairman said it on Chinese state TV. Lab cells at 824, chasing 1,000 long-term, name on the record. Lab number. I'm telling you up front so the comment guy can sit down. But who funds WeLion, NIO, Huawei, Xiaomi, Geely? When the biggest tech and car money in China all points at one lab, that's not a fantasy, that's a roadmap. What does energy density mean for you? Miles per pound. An EV that goes 300 miles is dragging a battery that weighs as much as 2 grown men in the trunk, 1,000 plus pounds. That's why EVs are pigs that eat tires and corner like a bank vault. The battery is fat. Cut that, even half the lab promise in the real world, and you either keep the weight and the car goes 900 miles on one charge, or you keep the range and cut a 1/4 ton of fat. And remember, this is the same battery you can put a nail through. The old rule was safety or energy. Pick one. They're not picking, they're taking both. That's the physics broken part, literally. And here's what the news will miss. Everybody fixates on range. The scary part is weight. Lose 1,000 pounds and it's a different car. Less structure, smaller motors, smaller brakes, cheaper to build all the way down. That's not a better EV, that's a cheaper way to build any car at all. The country that gets there first doesn't just win the EV race, it resets the price of every car on Earth. Keep that in your back pocket. I promised you cars, real ones, with names. These China videos usually die on concept and could arrive by 2035. Not this. Names, dates, on the record. 1. Chery, one of China's oldest car makers. Early 2026, they announced their first solid-state EV, the Exceed Li Feng, a sleek shooting brake targeting 1,500 kilometers, better than 900 miles on the Chinese cycle. And they're rolling it out in stages, first into hammered ride-hailing fleets to prove it in the worst conditions. That's not hype behavior, that's engineer behavior. 2. BYD, the company that outsold Tesla while not even allowed in America. At the Beijing Auto Show, April 2026, the show every analyst said was defined by one word, solid state. BYD put a sulfide all-solid-state battery in an actual car. 480 watt-hours per kilogram. Today's normal battery is 180. Vehicle install planned for 2027. 3. Just showing off. Chery's Rhino S unit showed a cell at 600. These companies are now racing each other to humiliate the rest of the world. And behind all of them, CATL. Roughly 40% of every EV battery on Earth runs through this one Chinese company. CATL says solid-state mass production, 2027. The consensus across BYD, Chery, GAC, CATL, the government roadmap is the same. Small batch 2026 and 2027, mass production starting 2027, broad rollout by 2030. That's not someday, that's the trade-in cycle of the truck in your driveway right now. And every one of them comes back to the same thing. No liquid, no fire. The nail. It always comes back to the nail. Now count, in your head, how many American companies did I just name? 0. Not one. The country that invented mass-producing the car has nobody in the room. How does the country of Henry Ford end up with nobody in the room? Get mad. You should be. Here's that number again, 12 years. There's an American-linked company, QuantumScape, solid state. Volkswagen put money in back in 2012. That's when the West's serious bet got placed. And today, VW's still at the licensing, planning, on a path stage. 12 years of coming soon. 12 years of breakthrough press releases. Meanwhile, Greater Bay drives a nail through a finished cell off a real line and it doesn't get warm. I'm not dunking on QuantumScape. Solid state is brutally hard. That's why it's the grail. I'm telling you about the gap. Same starting line, same era. One side spent 12 years issuing statements. The other spent it building lines. And you know who drove a Chinese EV for 6 months? The CEO of Ford, Jim Farley. Henry Ford's company, the Mustang, the F-150, and he had a Xiaomi flown in, drove it 6 months, and told a podcast on the record that he didn't want to give it up. The CEO of Ford not wanting to hand back the Chinese car. This isn't feelings, it's the scoreboard. The Big Three's combined global market share fell from about 21% in 2019 to roughly 15.5% by 2025. While America perfected the touchscreen and subscription heated seats, the other guy rebuilt the battery, the actual heart of the thing. That's how you lose an industry. Not in a crash. In a slow leak you don't feel until the tire's flat. And I'm not doing the cheap thing. American engineers are world class. We put men on the moon with less computer than your microwave. The problem isn't brains. We got comfortable. We decided the car was a solved problem, and the future was a 0 to 60 brag, and we let the boring, decade-long work drift somewhere else. And don't let anyone sell you cheap labor. You don't nail test a solid-state cell off a production line with cheap labor. This isn't cheaper, it's better. That's the part nobody wants to say out loud. I'll say it. So how did one country pull this off? It's not the answer you think. 3 things. None of them magic. That's the scary part. It's all stuff we used to do. 1. They coordinated. Battery makers, car makers, universities, government, all pointed at the same target, with serious money behind all solid state spread across the biggest players at once. CATL, BYD, the state automakers, Lion, Geely. I don't care what you vote. Mechanically, when a whole industry rows the same direction on a hard, boring, decade-long problem, it covers ground that companies suing each other never will. We used to be the best in the world at exactly that. Manhattan Project, Apollo, Bell Labs. We invented that playbook. We just stopped running it. 2. They went vertical. BYD makes its own. Batteries, motors, chips, power electronics, around 3/4 of an EV in-house. So when their battery engineers have an idea, they walk down the hall, not call a supplier and a lawyer and wait a year. Henry Ford understood this. River Rouge, ore in one end, cars out the other. We invented vertical integration, then spent 40 years outsourcing it to save $3 a part. They picked our own playbook off the floor and beat us with it. 3. They didn't stop. Their executives say the thing that keeps them up at night isn't the competition catching up. It's their own people getting comfortable. Read that back. The thing that scares the winners is the exact thing that beat us. Comfort. They run scared on purpose. We got comfortable by accident. None of those 3 were Chinese secrets. Coordinate, integrate, never get comfortable. That was Detroit's recipe. Pittsburgh Steel, Apollo, the America your dad worked in. They didn't out-invent us with a trick. They picked up the thing we put down, which means we can pick it back up. It's not a Chinese superpower, it's a habit. and habits can come back. Let's talk about your engine. Truth, good and bad. The good, and it's true, nobody's coming for the 69 in your garage. Internal combustion sticks around a long time. Collector cars, work trucks, places a charger will never reach. The roar isn't getting deleted next Tuesday. The bad. The mass market car. The one that pays for the factories, employs the towns, funds the dealerships. That car runs on this. On a battery you can put a nail through. And whoever builds the best version cheapest decides who builds cars and who just changes the oil on somebody else's. This was never about whether you personally buy an EV. It's about the jobs, the towns, the union plant, the dealership your buddy's family ran for 3 generations. That whole web runs on whoever owns the next platform, and the American names on that board are still 0. The question isn't, will my car be electric? It's, will my grandkid build cars or just import them? But this is not a death sentence. A major American paper in 2026 literally called this America's EV Sputnik moment. Sputnik scared this country so badly we put a man on the moon 11 years later. 11 years, from oh no to we win. We are the country that turns we're behind into watch this. We just have to decide to, and that starts with not lying to ourselves about where we are. And where we are is behind, on the most important part, by about a decade, 12 years. We keep landing there. That's the whole video in one number. That's not a China video, that's a mirror. The whole thing in one tight package. Lock it in. 1. The nail. Greater Bay, backed by GAC, drove steel through a charged all-solid-state cell off a real line in 2026, and it did nothing. They took the flammable liquid out. The 30-year fire rule, broken. 2. The number. WeLion, funded by NIO, Huawei, Xiaomi, Geely, hit 824 watt-hours per kilogram in the lab, chasing 1,000. Normal today is 180, roughly 5 times, with the safety, not instead of it. That's the physics that broke. 3. The cars. Cherry exceed leafing. Solid state, 1,500 kilometer target. BYD, 480 in a real car at Beijing 2026, vehicles 2027. CATL, 40% of the world's batteries. Mass production 2027. Real names, real dates, not someday. 4. The mirror. The West's been on a path since 2012. China spent those 12 years building lines. Detroit's global share leaked from 21 to 15%. The CEO of Ford didn't want to give the Chinese car back. 5. The hope. Coordinate, integrate, never get comfortable. That's the American playbook. We wrote it. Apollo, 11 years from Sputnik to the moon. The recipe is on the floor where we dropped it. The nail, the number, the cars, the mirror, the hope. If you forget everything else, those 5. One thing, and it's not smash like. Honest answer in the comments. I'll actually read these. Can America run the Sputnik play one more time and catch this, or did we already hand the next 100 years of the car away in a boardroom while we weren't looking? Yes, we catch it, or no, it's gone. One word, then the why. Especially if you worked in this industry, especially if your town lived the 70s. Your comment is worth more than any expert's. You lived it. And if you made it here, you're my people. This channel tracks exactly this. Real specs, real names, real dates, called straight, no vaporware, every week, and it's moving fast. Subscribe, not as a favor, but because this is a slow leak, and the whole point is to make sure you feel it move while there's still time. Don't get comfortable. That's the rule that beat us, and it's the rule that can save us. One more time. The nail went in. Nothing happened. Remember that picture, because that quiet little nothing is the loudest thing that's happened to the car industry in 50 years. I'll see you in the next one.